Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus. My name is Fahraaz Patel. I would like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, TSTV channel 347. For today, we've given a special 48 minutes to discuss a time in South Africa, a very dark time, a time of trying to find reconciliation, a time to try and find forgiveness, but it hasn't yielded any results as yet. I'm talking about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Of course, this was established in the 1990s by the then late Archbishop Desmond Tutu to go ahead and have accountability for the many families who had suffered during the dark days of apartheid. Last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa had announced that an inquest into finding out why deliverance from the TRC hearings has not been forthcoming. And of course, this is going to involve many stakeholders from the National Prosecuting Authority to many others to try and make sure that closure is found with regards to the families. Let me welcome my guests today. To my immediate right, I'd like to welcome Lentheng Mekgwe. She served as the Ekurhuleni mayor between 2008 and 2010 and is currently serving as the deputy convener of the ANC Gauteng PTT. She was involved in the TRC missing task team within the African National Congress. And to her right, I'd like to welcome no stranger to the station, Mr. Jaki Seroke. He is a PAC political stalwart, and he served time in Robben Island between 1987 to 1991. I said to be corrected? That's right. Thank you so much, Mr. Seroke. Let me start off with you, Ms. Mekgwe. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. The announcement by President Ramaphosa last week, how important was it, given that when we look back to those images of the TRC, it still brings a lot of pain to victims of apartheid?
I think for me that's very important because where I am, we've been asking the same questions to say there were recommendations that were made by the TRC. Some are being implemented, but others have not. The question has been why and what is the delay? I think for me that's important because it will help us to identify where the gaps are, where the challenges are, and be able to resolve those as a country. Sure. Because working with the families of those people that either are missing or that died, I know how they feel. They're mixed emotions. When they recover their loved ones, at times it's happiness, at times it's sadness. Not the sadness in terms of dying, because they knew that when you join the struggle, you'll pay the ultimate price. It might have not been defined exactly what we meant at the time that you will pay the ultimate price. But some of the families, the torture that they experienced during that period, because when the security branch of the time knew that either your loved one is outside of the country, whether he's done something inside the country, underground operations, when they know that one of your family members is involved, you are actually harassed. Sure. So at times it brings those emotions. But for some, immediately when they found out that their loved ones is in a particular place or is being brought back, people become happy because people want closure. I'm not sure whether there is closure because I've not experienced that personally. Yes. But interacting with the families, I know that many of them are saying, we want closure. I hope they will find the closure.
And of course, we're going to be touching because you went through interrogation, you went through harassment, you went to detention. The same can be said for you, Mr. Seroke. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Seroke, from the Pan-African Congress perspective, this has been something that you as a party have been speaking about since the early 90s, since the TRC Commission was established, even now. This decision by President Ramaphosa, how much does it now change the landscape of this accountability for those perpetrators of apartheid, whether they are alive or not, to really be named and shamed when those dark days were happening in apartheid?
I think the reconciliation project, whilst it has been a very good approach by the government since 1994, it has also not been reciprocated properly by the perpetrators of violence. South Africa was basically a police state, and the police had greater excesses. There are many people who are still missing, who are not accounted for, and who have not been properly given justification of what had happened to them, especially those who died. The one-sidedness has always been a problem with the process of the TRC. And I think the state president currently is merely saying, let those that are on the blind side, the blind spot during that period, be brought to light. There are many cases of families who are still complaining and saying, we want to know what's going on here, including issues such as repatriation. Some have never even, I'm talking about families who were accorded amounts for their families to as part of the process of the TRC. There are others who have not even, who have died, but the policemen who did the evil deed are still walking and roaming free in the street without accounting and telling their side of the story. There's even the story of refusal to identify the body of Simelane, the one who was abducted and kidnapped from Carlton Center in the middle of Johannesburg. There's a case going on. The fellow who's on trial, Willem Kotier, is refusing to come out in the open. Actually, some of the co-conspirators in the murder or the alleged murder of Simelane have even died. He's the sole survivor. So there's a lot of problems with regard to those things, and the NPA has not really driven the program to its final conclusion. So we think that whilst the state president has made the right move, it may be difficult through a commission of inquiry to get to the nitty-gritties because of the time lapse. Sure. It may be difficult to get to that, but it's a right move.
Yeah. Ms. Mekgwe, currently the ANC is in the process of repatriation of a number of freedom fighters. Many of their bodies are either within the continent, many of them are overseas in different parts of the world. The importance of that repatriation, talk to us about it, because over the weekend we had a repatriation of a number of stalwarts that were underground. You were telling me off air that there are still currently many that the ANC are trying to get. The importance of that given in light of President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement last week.
Yeah. No, look, there are many comrades, whether in the ANC, PAC, or Azandla, who died outside of the country. Some of them through ambush. If you were to talk about issues, especially in Angola. But some of them, the graves are not known.
Sure.
But some of them, we are told that they might be in, they were buried massively. Mass people, in their large numbers, they might have been buried in one grave. Yes. But families want them back. Because if you know that your loved one is buried here, it becomes even better. Yes. And as the ANC, we are making the call to say our government must help, because ordinarily either families are disintegrated or those elderly people that were there at the time might have died. There are young people who might have heard stories about those stalwarts who died outside of the country. So for us, it will be difficult. You might find that maybe in my family, I might be able, depending on my capacity, to bring in my loved one back in the country, but it's not everyone. Sure. So we're saying our government must lead us to ensure that those people, because they died for the country, they did not die on their own accord, they must be brought back in the country. I know Comrade Jaki can also tell you, work very, very close with the PC to ensure that those that are repatriated back work together with our government to rebury them. Over the weekend, we buried those that were in the gallows, those that were hanged, 1985 and 1989 respectively. And they were exhumed recently, and we're burying them. So it's those in the gallows, it's those that died in the country. I know that in terms of the TRC cases that we had, 2012 we buried close to 12 in Gauteng, and in other provinces as well. We buried a number of them. I think for me that's important, because families want them back home. But I also know that at times, I visited some of the graves in Tanzania and also in Uganda. Some of the people that we talked to about said, no, but even with ourselves, these people, they become our family, whether in Tanzania or whatsoever. But the immediate family, they want them in the country. Yeah.
After the break, we'll continue this conversation. We're going to be asking, where can the line be drawn between forgiveness and accountability when it comes to the dark days of apartheid? To stay tuned. Welcome back to News in Focus. Our conversation today is about the TRC inquest, and of course, last week President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that further investigations needs to happen to find deliverance and closure for the victims of apartheid. My guests are Jaki Seroke and Lentheng Mekgwe. Mr. Seroke, I want to come to you. Your time serving, and of course in Robben Island, it was coming closer to the time where, of course, many other prisoners were about to be released. But when you hear of the stories of the prisons, it's that of darkness, it's that of a painful moment. You juxtapose that to, of course, many families that had gone through difficult times. Times where you've mentioned the security police would rock up, no explanations, nothing, and they would take you away. And when you watch the TRC commission a number of times, you would see tears flowing from the eyes of the victims. Some of them not ready to forgive. It's difficult, isn't it, Mr. Seroke? Because when you go through the trauma, only then would you understand just the severity of what apartheid had done to the families. Talk to us about that.
No, the security police had a brutality that I think can be matched by only a few countries who trampled on the human rights and violated the rights of individuals in
We
their
can talk of
countries.
Israel. I mean, we see what's happening in Israel right now.
Yes.
Sorry to interject you there. I mean, there's another possibility.
People are put in prison without trial, even for longer period, up to 5 years in Israel. We've had in Argentina people disappearing and so on. In Chile, in most parts of Africa as well. But the apartheid security branch had its own style. They had method to torture and torture women, for instance. They detained children underage and put them in isolation. So they've caused a lot of trauma to a lot of innocent people as well, with the idea of putting fear in their minds. What the TRC aimed to do was to have a happy medium where the victim and the perpetrator would be able to reconcile through telling the truth. And but it was one-sided, and some of the perpetrators who are still around still have to account for the deeds that they did and doing things openly. So that's I think one of the sad part of the TRC. But South Africans, being who they are, were still calling on people to come and declare where some of their victims are. Unfortunately, with the security branch police torture method, they would concentrate on the innocent people who are not even involved, and torture them badly to instill fear so that they don't associate with freedom fighters, they don't associate with activists and so on. So we want to turn that around by telling the truth about these happenings and to make people learn from them. Our view in the liberation movement, let me put it that way, because we discussed this with members of MK, members of APLA, members of Azanda and others, that perhaps what could work for us is to erect something like the tomb of an unknown soldier. They have it in they had it in the US, in Russia and Moscow. They have it because not every activist, every guerrilla has been accounted for. So that spiritually and people can go there to pay their respect to their loved ones. I mean, the story of Angola is a sad one because there was a war going on. There was these niceties of having proper funeral and burials were not there. They could never happen like that. And so it's going to be next to impossible to find almost everybody in Angola. The same happens even in other countries, Mozambique and Tanzania and countries like that.
Mr. Seroke, and to that point on dignity, Ms. Mekgwe, because you deal with families that are still asking the questions. And it's very difficult to give them the answers because when you look at the TRC, the commission itself, it's a very interesting point that Mr. Seroke brought. It has that one-sided effect. There really wasn't a sense of true accountability that was occurring there. Talk to us about how trying to explain to the families that difficulty of really reaching out and allowing them the closure that they truly do deserve.
Well, closure doesn't come because you must explain. It comes from the inner part. You hear of stories of, when, for example, Solomon Mahlangu was to be hanged. When he turned back and he said to his mom, go tell my people that I love them. My blood will nourish the freedom of liberty. That's a big statement. I think for me, that's where I find solace. We also hear about Benjamin Molisa, who said, whether they hang me or not, he said to his mom, I'm not going to surrender. I'm not going to give in. That alone, you as an individual, as an activist, makes you to accept what has happened. But obviously our leaders, with the pain that most of us have undergone in our country, including those that, as Comrade Jaki is indicating, innocent people. Their families were tortured. Some of them were not even involved in the struggle, but they were tortured by the apartheid government. But these comrades died being martyrs. And for me, that's big enough. But you don't force people to heal. People heal in their own time. They heal through their own process. And that's why the president says, let's find the truth. Many of us will only be healed if the truth is on the table. When I remember in one meeting when President Nelson Mandela came, I was still very young, very radical. He came to our meeting as the Youth League then to say, we must forgive and forget. It was very difficult. Because remember, as young people, we were on the streets all the time. We were tortured, went to prison, we were very, very young. But we had to listen to our leaders because they know of other stories all over the world of similar. That's why at times even the issue of Palestine, when it arises, we get so agitated, we get so angry because it happened to us in South Africa. And if our leaders didn't stop the fighting, and I don't know why these people, because we've said we are forgiving you, but we can't just forget. Come forward, tell us your story, tell us what has happened. We'll forgive you because that is a message as being commanded by our leaders.
And that's where, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes each, Ms. Mekgwe and Mr. Seroke, and let's start with you, Mr. Seroke. Forgiveness. It's an easy word to say, but deep down inside, when I look at those TRC commission hearings, many mothers, and I have to speak on the mothers because as a mother, Ms. Mekgwe, you would speak on that. It's easy to forgive your child. My mother's forgiven me on a number of occasions. But it's difficult, isn't it? How do you just forgive someone who's committed such a heinous crime, a crime against humanity? The 2 minutes starts now.
No, but when we live together in the same country and we are neighbors and so on, we have to find a way of coming to a closure of the tension between ourselves. And one of the instruments which really comes from a religious belief is that you need to forgive. But forgiving does not mean forgetting. We need to forgive so that we can find inner peace. But that forgiveness also depends on an honest disclosure of the one that you forgive. If you have wronged your mother and you don't ask for forgiveness, you don't really admit that you are sorry, I think it will be difficult for her to forgive you.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Ms. Mekgwe, you are a mother.
Yes.
Forgiveness, I mean, I'm sure your children have done things, whether it's small or big, and you've forgiven them because it's the motherly instinct within you.
Yes, it's a motherly instinct.
Yes, yeah. Talk to us about, but how do you not forget it? Because Mrs. Seroke hit the nail on the head. The forgetting part cannot just be swept away like that.
As a mother myself, I know that when you tell the truth, it becomes easier.
Yes.
But when you tell lies, that's when I get angry.
Yeah.
And I will not even forget you, forgive you. So I want to adhere to what Comrade Jaki is saying. We can't hate each other for long, because when you build a nation, tomorrow you'll need this particular person. But it doesn't mean that when you're going to need him, it must be true falsehood.
Yes.
People must put their, and will understand. Some of them, remember, they were forced into doing what they did. Sure. They must put that on the table. We'll forgive them. It will be easy. And for me, I think that is where closure will come in. But while they're still dilly-dallying and not wanting to tell the truth, not wanting to come forward, you know, I can tell you of mothers whose children cannot be traced. I remember one family in Soweto, where the missing person searched him, they only found the hair. There was no body. And the mother said, you know, I'm growing up. I might die very soon. Just go and bury that hair. When you find the body, then you can go, because at least I will know, I will die knowing that my child is lying there.
Yes.
And as we were preparing for the burial, the missing persons task team of the NPA found the remains. Not where this police officer said, the information came later, but they were able to go exhume. Then I had to go explain to Mama Khumalo to say they found the remains. Mama Khumalo was so happy. He was singing songs, praising God to say, at long last, if I die now, I'll be happy. Guess what? On a Thursday, they were doing memorial service before the burial. Mama Khumalo died in my hands. And it was, I cried because I said, why will Mama Khumalo do this to me? But it's because at the end, he found the truth.
Yes.
That's how I view it at the end. Wherever she is lying, because we had to bury her side by side with her own son. So even those that are still out there not wanting to tell the truth, let them come forward. It will be easy. We are South Africans, we're a forgiving nation. And as we build the nation, we should actually forgive each other, because we'll need each other going forward, or even if it's not us, but our children and grandchildren. We are building a nation here.
No, without a doubt, Ms. Mekgwe, I have to stop you there. After the break, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to be touching on justice for the victims of apartheid. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to News in Focus. We are touching on the TRC Commission and, of course, the President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to have this inquest reopened, to finding truth and, of course, closure for many families who were affected by apartheid. Ms. Mekgwe, I want to touch on with you to start on justice. You're mentioning it now that many mothers, many fathers, many family members do not get the opportunity to see justice with their own eyes. This now, of course, comes to the question of the role of our justice system right now in a democratic South Africa. Your assessment of it. I know, of course, Minister Mamloko Kubai has mentioned that with President Cyril Ramaphosa announcing this, there has to be a speedily process to this. Are you confident that this can happen?
When working together with our Justice Department, I think it's possible. Let's give this process a chance. Let's ensure that we join hands to ensure that this issue is speedily resolved. I'm sure I have a trust. Because, I mean, when we made a call, it was in 1990 after the unbanning, when we said the TRC must be established. It was established. Then there were recommendations, although there were delays, we need to find out why there were delays. But also for those issues that have actually happened, there is hope that it will happen. And it should happen now, in our time, so that the generation to come must not feel what we felt as this current generation.
Mr. Seroke, to what Ms. Mekgwe is mentioning, the fact that this has to be done now. We've seen commissions that have been established that have not yielded the results many people would have wanted. Is there a sense from a PAC perspective that this commission, given the fragility of it, given the sensitivity of it, that there needs to be speedily deliverance so that the families can have their day of justice?
I think that from a government point of view, you need an instrument to use in order to address some of the issues that have not been properly resolved through the normal process, through the NPA and so on. So if the commission, and the commission will deal with proper cases that are clearly identified, because there are families who have raised concerns and who are putting pressure on government to resolve the issue. I think the wisdom of the president is to use a commission in order to find a happy medium and answers to these issues. It's a good move. I think we should trust that and give it an opportunity to roll out and probably come to an ending as quick as possible. So I've heard other people criticizing it and so on, but I think their criticism is misplaced because they liken it to the Zondo Commission and to expenses and things like that. But we cannot, I mean, government is driven by the people. It's a sizable number, about 146 families that are raising their own concern about the missing ones. And they should be given a hearing. And I think this is the right move.
Yeah, I think part of the criticism, and it's good that you've mentioned it, Mr. Seroke, is that families are saying there's a slow process and maybe our justice system isn't as effective as probably they would want it to be. But in a situation like this, the fact that this is dealing with crimes against humanity, this is dealing with apartheid crimes, one may be asking the question of how quick, how speedily, and to what effect. From the families that you've spoken to, Ms. Mekgwe, what is it that they want for the perpetrators, whether they come out and speak the truth or they have to be brought in to an actual court to have their say? What is it that the families are telling you?
Well, many of them are saying if they can speak the truth, it will be easier. But some will say, some have spoken. Whether it's the truth or not, it's very difficult to measure. But those that we think that they've spoken the truth, they must be prosecuted. And I'm sure they will therefore find closure in terms of that. I know for a fact that I have friends that their home was bombed in Tutuza. And even those that were identified as being perpetrators, they disown. And there's no family anymore. Both the mother and the father have passed on. Even the elder brothers have passed on. We don't know who killed those poor souls. They were young students, COSAS activists. They were killed. But some of those issues, the community will still say, but who killed these young people? It's not only in Tutuza, but it's all over, including those that we know that they have gone to the TRC. They accepted that they've done that. They've asked for forgiveness, but nothing is happening. That's why the families are pushing to say, something must just be done. It can't just be normal. But let's give this process a chance, because we heard from the minister that the terms of reference have been finalized. It's on the president now to announce the names. And I'm sure those that will announce, I'm not an expert in that, but they will know better. If there is a challenge, Let them tell the South Africans what is the challenge. I'm sure we'll understand, because I also hear the conversation around the issue of the Zondo Commission, why it can be expedited. It's experts that are talking, not necessarily that people are ignoring. And also with the TRC cases, remember, there were those that were given reparation. But I'm not sure whether money can give closure, because if, for one, somebody says, let me give you money so that they can give closure, it won't help. But all I am waiting for is the truth, and nothing else but the truth.
There's something important that Ms. Mekgwe mentions there, Mrs. Seroke. It's not just about money. There has to be, in the eyes of the victim, the actual justice that needs to occur. Prison term. I want to ask whether prison term for the perpetrators of apartheid is a viable option. We saw, of course, even as early as last year, that members of the Nazi Party were actually being given prison sentences for what had happened in the Holocaust. Can the justice system look at something like that and say, maybe prison term, even if it's 1, 2, 3 years, to set an actual example that if you are a perpetrator of war crimes in South Africa, that you will face the might of the law when it's brought upon you?
No, I think crime goes along with punishment. There must be some form of punishment, and one of the easiest is to send people to prison. We don't have the death penalty in South Africa, so it allows people an opportunity to express themselves in a court of law and state their reasons for the crimes they committed and be judged on that basis. So those who refuse to participate in that process, it's just a process before you get to prison. So are really being unfair to the system itself, to the victims and so on. But I really do think that our system of justice is fair. It's even fair that you can confront it, you can go to the court and speak your own piece, and if you are found guilty, you serve your term in prison. There's paroles and so on. So go and face it.
For me,
just to close it off, yes.
The inquiry is also important in the sense that, look, Yaluz Walus went to prison.
Yes.
But he still come out and say, if I were to do it, I will do it again. So he must tell us what makes him.
But there's no remorse. But there's no remorse in what he says. If you listen to Mrs. Dimpohani, there's still anger and there's still pain, because Janusz Walush has the audacity to actually mention those words.
That's why he must come back and tell us what happened. Because if he tells the truth, if say I will do it again, and there's a truth in it, it will be better. So the commission of inquiry for me is important to dig out, because it means the jail sentence didn't help him.
It didn't rehabilitate him, that's for sure.
You see? Yeah.
And obviously, before we go to the break, the interesting part of this is, of course, extradition.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting, the extradition treaty that South Africa has with Poland, for him to be brought back. But of course, that's something we can address at another time. Yes. After the break, we wrap up this conversation. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to News in Focus. Today's discussion has been about President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement last week to have the TRC Commission inquest reopen for the victims of apartheid. Mr. Seroke, I want to start off with you as we wrap up this conversation. From your personal experience, from your experience of apartheid, from your experience of being arrested, from your experience of being a struggle stalwart, what this announcement meant last week, what it means as a whole for you, the fact that justice, truth, reconciliation, but most importantly, accountability. How important is this moment in time for the country and for you personally as Jaki Seroke?
No, I think what is there for us, all of us to consider, is that first, it's good that the authorities do not want to sweep things under the carpet or to hide the information. It should come out in the open so that all of us, including those who are not necessarily, who have not gone through the experience themselves directly, can see that we've closed an important chapter in our lives as society. It's also very important for the victims and everybody else. But the main point for me is more political. It is that those who committed crimes against others should really reconsider their failures in history, their errors and their excesses, and account for them in such a way that we can all move forward in history. It's not right for us to be distrustful and not be able to talk openly to such an extent that we allow outsiders of other countries, especially the US, to intervene and express things that they don't understand about our history. We are trying to resolve our own problems. And in doing that, it's best if all of us participate and tell our piece of the story with the idea of finding reconciliation and building a new nation under democratic terms.
No, without a doubt. No, thank you for that, Mr. Seroke. Ms. Mekgwe, for you, you went under detention, you went under the brutality of the security branch. All of this that is happening, given what is happening during the 1990s, when the TRC Commission was set up, President Cyril Ramaphosa's announcement last week, your own experience. What does this mean for you at this moment in time in the country?
I think for me, as you build the country, remember we promised South Africans that when they vote in 1994, we'll be building a new South Africa. I agree with Comrade Jaki that don't sweep things under the carpet because that wound will forever be there. But as soon as we clean our house, and because we're all hoping that the TRC recommendations will be implemented sooner, and therefore closure will be there. We're all excited. So now recommendations were set, nothing happened, and those that are still hiding information, they're still out there. Some of them might have been dead, others are, but they must come and tell us the truth. So for me, the truth will set all of us free, and they will help us to rebuild the nation. Yeah.
Rebuilding the nation, we've got 3 minutes for both of you. How much does this help rebuilding the nation? Our country is going through many challenges.
Yeah.
There are many positives, there are many negatives, but this over here, this moment, how does it help to rebuild the nation going forward so that government, stakeholders can focus on important aspects such as economics, the social, the upliftment of communities who have been left behind during apartheid, for there to be a positive road forward? Ms. Mekgwe.
I think for me this process is an example of where we want to go. You see, because things were not done to the fullest. That's why you still have crime, because people think that things will be swept under the carpet. You still find racist people in our country, because people don't think that there will be repercussions for that. I mean, when our country, when our government comes up with laws that are trying to heal the past, for example, the NHI, which will also assist everyone, Employment Equity Act, then there will be those that will go to courts and try to stop it. I think as soon as these things are closed, even those steps, people will stop doing those things, funny things, because they're not helping anyone. Remember, as blacks, as Africans in particular, we said we are forgiving people, but others are still want to take us back, which is not fair. So these processes must actually help, so that even those that are thinking that we are just playing marbles here, they must actually stop it. So that also, remember, the calls that were made by our forebears to say, including the issues of Palestine.
Yes.
Palestine will never be free until South Africa is free. South Africa is free, but look at what is still happening in Palestine. Palestine might be kilometers away from us, miles away from us, but we are Palestinians being here in South Africa. And many other countries that their people are still, facing these apartheid crimes. They must stop. But remember, South Africa was hope for the world. South Africa was the hope for all those that are still oppressed. And it is still hope. People still feel that if in South Africa we deal with issues to the latter, then it will be easy for all of us, or for the whole world to actually focus and ensure that its people are actually liberated in the true sense.
Mr. Seroke, your take on this question?
Yeah, I think that the problem in South Africa is it's symbolic to the problems of the entire world, because the world has opened up to international crime syndicates who are now moving into almost every country, and obviously South Africa will be part of that. The world has a problem with the global South and the global North differences, and that power struggle still continues now, where others are the policemen of the world, policemen and women of the world, whilst others are merely policed and told what to do. So these imbalances create problems for countries like South Africa and the neighboring countries and the region, the geopolitical conflict areas that we have. And you also have these difficulties where there is war by proxy, where they use other elements to conduct a war, not of their own, like we have seen in the Congo right now, where a raging war is continuing. So these problems, in the way of reflecting that, are also in South Africa, and we come across them. So despite our liberation and freedom, we still have these difficulties to address, and we must be serious about it. So we must be able to find a way in which we balance ourselves off in such a way that we don't increase the rightward movement of the country and actually be progressive in the world and vouch for peace and safety of all the people.
We've got about just 1.5 minutes left. Just your closing comments, Ms. Mekgwe, for this discussion.
I want to call upon all South Africans that let us support the move that has been made by the President of the Republic of South Africa to ensure that this inquest, because it will tell us the truth and nothing else, but the truth will set us free eventually.
Mr.
Seroke, your closing comments?
Yeah, I also think that we cannot be perpetual victims for a long time. We have to overcome the victimhood. And the only way we can overcome it is to try and deal with the past and things that are outstanding in the past, such as what the TRC had found out. And I think resolving them is the right way. We should really support them.
Mr. Seroke, Ms. Mekgwe, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Jaki Seroke. He is a political stalwart from the Pan-African Congress. Of course, he had served time in Robben Island during the times of apartheid between 1987 and 1991. And Lentheng Ntombi Mekgwe, she currently is leading the TRC missing task team within the African National Congress, and she was the former mayor of Ekurhuleni from 2008 to 2010, and she sits now as the deputy convener of the ANC in Gauteng. Well, that's all we have for you here in News in Focus. Do have yourself a good weekend, but most importantly, a safe one, and I will see you on Monday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.